Great. Okay. Well, thank you guys for being here, and many of you through the whole duration of this class. So it's been a wonderful 4 sessions, and I'm excited here for the fifth. Uh, Last week we had talked a little bit. We kind of walked through a worship service. They're led by some of my friends with disabilities back at St. James United Methodist. Some folks that are on this call, and we finished uh, with kind of me challenging some of, there was a lot of beauty in that service, and I kind of left the class with the challenge of, well, the only thing bad about this is that it's not every week. That was a special Sunday that we were all there worshiping, and there were definitely elements within that church where folks with disabilities were sharing their gifts week in and week out, and those were the best parts. And I think that picture of a church where people with disabilities and people of any abilities, right, they're all sharing week in, week out. That is the picture of mission, where we have a more whole body, where all of our different parts, um, there aren't parts that are segregated out. Just to do so is to like put Kendra's gifts in under a bushel basket, right? Uh, Kendra has gifts for the church, and if we just get to see if she just shares one prayer on one special Sunday a year, that's a shame. And Chris has a wonderful way in worship and a wonderful sense of himself in ministry. And if we just get to see that ministry once a year or something like that, that's a shame. Same too for all of our folks with disabilities, and then also everybody. I think that one of the main challenges for the Western Church is how to kind of deprofessionalize ministry. There's something that is offered from professional ministers. Seminary education is an important gift for the church, but it's not the only gift for the church. Will Wellman knows a lot about Greek, and the church needs that. But that's not all the church needs, and the church needs all of its various and sundry parts. Just looking back to Paul's talk about the body. If if we were all noses, where would the sense of hearing be? We can't say one part to one part of the body, we don't need you. We need them all. And that needs to be ongoing and week in and week out. And so this week, I want to lift up some churches who are doing that well. I think there are, in lots of little ways, in fact, Tampa is kind of a special area. There are lots of churches around Tampa that are doing ministry with folks with disabilities. In a way, whenever I was in Northeast Florida, I was always looking around for churches who were doing this kind of work, and I couldn't find them. And so, incredibly grateful to be in an area where that's happening, but also looking more broadly in the community there. I want to lift up this church, Beloved Everybody Church, and it's led by Bethany McKinney Fox, Reverend Dr. Bethany McKinney Fox, and she leads this church called Beloved Everybody. And she wrote this book. I'll put this here, and I'll share with you guys. It's Disability in the Way of Jesus, and it lifts up, well, there are ways in which Jesus does healing that are at odds with kind of the medical model of, oh, and Chris, you've got your hand up. I'm asking to unmute you if you can. Were you sharing? All right, it's up to you to unmute yourself if you. All right. Yeah, so sorry, lost myself. So Bethany McKinney Fox, Beloved Everybody Church. Oh yes. So she wrote this book, Disability: The Way of Jesus, and in it, she, for a question about mission, there's a way in which part of Jesus's ministry of healing and the ministry of healing that we're called to in the church is different than the medical model of healing that we, which is a vital way of healing that we're not spurning, that there's a lot of good things that are coming out of medicine, but it is just one little bit of healing. And in some ways, it's at odds with this ministry alongside folks with disabilities because, well, the medical model of disability wants to fix things. And there is some sense with our friends with disabilities that there's uh, the medical model of disability might say this person is broken or they have some deficits that if we could fix them, we would. And there are ways in which Jesus brings healing that is more whole, that sets us right within our communities, that sets us right with one another, and really does a much better job, I think, of affirming the gifts of folks. And uh, yeah, and I think that that's the place for the church, and that's certainly something that Bethany is trying to do in her church. There's a way in which healing is offered in a Jesus community that does something special, and the church is in a special spot to offer this sort of healing. There, we've talked a little bit about the way, the ADA could legislate accessibility. It could open up restaurants. It can open up churches in some ways, but it can't legislate friendship. It can't legislate these things that we need in this deep way. And the church, though, being communities formed by Jesus, are in a place that we can offer those things. There is something unlegislatable or I don't know, that just can't be captured in that way that we have a particular place to do. And so in Bethany's church, Beloved Everybody Church, there is things look different in terms of leadership. They look different in terms of worship. They look different in terms of community. One of the things that they look different in terms of leadership, and I think, across this class, we've talked a lot about, and we've had displayed well in having some of the friends who I've invited to help co-lead this class with me do is just um, our friends with disabilities have a great capacity to lead the church, and that leadership often looks different. It doesn't. Most of the ways in which we define leadership in the church, most of my training is based on being a good talker or a good thinker, and that's what leadership looks like in the church. But there are all sorts of ways that Jesus leads that don't have anything to do with the kind of rational or uh, being eloquent or um, having a very well-defined kind of progression in conversation. And where is Chris? I wanted to offer to Chris and to Matt. We had talked a little bit about ways and things that they might like to share here at the last bit, just as a way to um, sometimes even in churches and ministries where we're doing disability ministry, where people with disabilities are being offered things, offered places of leadership, they're still being led or prompted by uh, folks who are neurotypical, mainstream, uh, typical leadership guys, professional Christians like myself, um, might be leading them. I might prompt Chris to pray or something like that. But I think the real challenge for a community like Beloved Everybody, and like in some ways the ministry that we're planting here down in South Tampa, Bethlehem Inclusive, is to allow our friends with disabilities to lead us. Because if I am trying to force Chris into the patterns of the church or force Matt to share in the way that I share, then we're losing out in some ways on his gifts. And when Chris, even with whatever challenges or in whatever different ways he might lead us, um, yeah, if we miss out on that, then we miss out on the change that folks with disabilities might bring to the mission of the church. Chris, I'm going to try to unmute you again. Oh,
I did.
you got it. Okay, great. Chris, before this class, I'd wanted to ask you, is there some way, something that you wanted to leave the class with about your leadership or about the ways in which you have gifts in ministry, or the ways in which you'd like to help lead the mission of the church?
Yeah, the yeah, yeah, I will lead on April. Well, I just started the season on April, and I go lead on April. Sunday class on April.
In April, you're leading a Sunday school class
Yes.
there at Grace in St. Augustine.
Yes, the Grace and the Church.
You're leading all over. Tell me more about what made you want to lead, and tell me about some of your understanding of your gifts for ministry.
My gift ministry is Patrick David raised me, and so Patrick Earl raised me, and I got give inside of me, the giving, the givers, you open the gift, and to the Christ, and about the kingdom faith, and about that, and the Jesus told them, and was it? He said, what is it today? Today is the Palm Sunday. Today is the.
Oh no. Yeah, we lost you in mid-sentence, Chris. But you're doing a much better job of leading the church than I am. I forgot to even make mention of the fact that it's Palm Sunday, and thanks for.
I know they.
Oh, there you go.
I know about I know about the Jesus. I saw the movie a lot. That he died. He said the Jesus tell Jericho, and tell them the Jesus. He's suffering.
And you're talking about our friend Jericho.
Yes,
you guys were talking together about Jesus. Chris, thanks for sharing some of that. And I'm thinking about our class the other day, not last one, but you were leaving class kind of sad, and you were thinking about part of our discussion about Bethany McKinney Fox and the ministry of healing. Some of the ways in which we go wrong in the church is that we offer healing that nobody wants, and there is a sense that there's a sense that we offer this healing that nobody wants, and there's a sense that folks with disabilities want to be healed from some things that are oftentimes they're not wholly defined by. We're not wholly defined by disability, but folks might say this is a core part of who I am. My having Down syndrome is not something that I'm ashamed of, or that is it's a part of who I am. Um, but the thing that was making Chris sad was he was like, I want to be employed in the church. The thing that I want is to have, like many people, I feel this call for ministry, and I have a calling to be working in the church. And so we had talked a little bit about that, and you were feeling some grief. There's a way in which healing in the way of Jesus is more, um, Jesus always, while there is oftentimes physical transformation that honors our bodies and takes into consideration, yeah, that our physicality and things like that. Um, Oftentimes there is a way in which healing is just bringing folks back, um, into kind of right relationship in their communities. It's um, Chris wants to relate to his community by, you know, giving his God-given gifts in a way that is more full-time, that is more, and you know, uh, that is honors his gifts with a paycheck the way that many other professional ministers do. So one of the things in that beloved everybody church is that they hire folks with disabilities, and a lot of times you can tell a church's priorities by where by its budget, basically. And so that if we want to, if it's a commitment, as I think we said over and over in class after class, that folks with disabilities have gifts that need to be shared within the church, how do we reflect that financially? Who do we, how do we hire them to share their gifts the way that we hire folks along every other different level? You know, um, I was really blessed the other day. Um, Disability Community Resource Hub, our friend Phyllis Goodman, she was on a couple of these calls early on, but they help to, here in Tampa, if you, yeah, you, let's say you're moving into the area and you've got a child with disabilities and you're looking for all these different services that you need. Um, this community resource hub is just a small, like, little booklet that helps you to connect to all those. And Phyllis is a great connector. Um, One of the things is we were looking at advertising there. She was saying, yeah, we've got graphic designers in here who are on the autism spectrum. And so, you know, one of the ways that we as an organization work to um, help lift up the gifts of our friends with disabilities by making sure that they're paid well for the good work that they can do. And so sometimes that looks the way that it looks. You know, there are those graphic designers who have gifts that anybody could see as being desirable. You know, I just did a logo for this ministry, Bethlehem Inclusive, here in Tampa, and we paid a graphic designer to do it. Um, you know, that's just work that I need. I'm not a designer. There are folks with autism who have those gifts that have difficulty accessing work, and so sometimes it looks just like anybody else, and it's just a matter of making sure that our hiring practices are um, not discriminatory. Sometimes, though, it's also upending the ways that we think about leadership to value the gifts of folks with disabilities. There are things about the way that church is normally done that need to be upset. And so leadership just looks different in that way. Um, Worship also, looking at that beloved everybody church, there's a way in which looking at the gifts of folks with disabilities kind of changes things or helps anybody that I thought was really beautiful. There is this, there's a member of that church that doesn't like to be touched. Sometimes in ministry with folks with disabilities, people like to be touched a lot, and or you know, there's a lot of hugs. My friend Alex gives like um chiropractic hugs. They like realign your spine, and you know that you've been hugged well when Alex hugs you. But that's not true for everybody. And I think also, if somebody is not a hugger, that could be one of the things that would make you feel anxious going into a disability ministry, is the idea of being kind of indiscriminately hugged. And that was true for this guy, is that he, this young man with a disability, had, you know, some way he didn't want to be touched, but also had some difficulties in communicating being touched, and so they instituted this um, uh, I don't know, name tag thing. And so there were different levels of name tag, like red, green, and yellow, very easily identifiable signals for us. Stop means I don't touch me. There are ways that I want to be engaged with. Being hugged is not one of them. Yellow might be um, give me a hug after, if you ask, and go through the right ways to get consent, or maybe that I'm comfortable with handshakes or something like that. And then green is like, I would be like a green person, just come up and hug me. I'm game for it. um, Let me also talk a little bit about one of the things that I think is beautiful in a way in which I wish that Wade were here. Wade Wetherington, he is on the board for Bethlehem Inclusive, the community for folks with disabilities and folks of any ability that we're starting up here in Tampa. And he's on that board, and he has a daughter, Jessica, who has Down syndrome. And Jessica came to one of the meetings, and she was wonderful. It was great. But I'll often be like, yeah, I think Jessica will come back. She's going to hang out at one of our board meetings again. And Jessica was like, no, it's boring there. Board meetings are boring, which if any, who has been to a boring meeting before? Yeah, we're all at them. To me, that listening to our friends with disabilities, listening to people with disabilities, and letting them, um, there's a way in which people with disabilities are excellent truth tellers, and that Jessica had no problem telling me that the meeting was boring is helpful to me. Um, uh, we might do things differently as a board if enough people are willing to say that it's boring. And I don't know, there's just a way that the church is just always doing the same things because they're comfortable for us, and because they, even though they aren't effective, we're very comfortable with the status quo. And so if it works for us, then we'll keep doing it. Maybe our board meetings might look like, in the future, sitting at Goody Goody and having a slice of butterscotch pie or something like that. And that's a meeting that I would like to be at more than the ones that I'm running. And I might let Jessica just lead me in that way. But also, there are ways in which we are attached to the sermon. One of the main ways that we do church is that some professional Christian, somebody with seminary training, maybe, at least in a lot of the mainline denomination traditions, will look at a text, we'll interpret it, we'll study it, and we bring that to the congregation. And a lot of ways, that's a beautiful and helpful thing. And I have learned much from sermons, even if I, if I was hard pressed, if I could tell you about what the last 3 sermons were, I might be lucky. But I think there's a way in which that's not really serving us well. And there are a lot of people who don't connect well through words, and might connect much better through a more participatory style of worship service. And I think sometimes our friends with disabilities would tell us that. Uh, and it would be good news if a worship service did not have a sermon, if there were other more participatory ways to engage with them. but yeah, I know we're comfortable with the way that we do things, but if we look to have a more inclusive service, if we look to those folks who don't connect well with words the way that seminary trained professional Christians do, if we look to change it, it would be good news for anybody. It would be good news. We're endlessly trying to figure out how to reach the church, or reach youth in the church, to connect with people that the church has not connected with before. Thinking about mission being one of the central pieces of this class. A lot of times when we would do messages differently, when I worked with Young Life, Capernaum, or when I worked in the church doing disability ministries, people would connect more to those messages. And I mean, it's kind of typical a lot of times in churches where there's like a children's message or something, and they're breaking things down differently. A lot of times those are the things that people come up afterwards and say, man, that I really connected to that, the children's message in a way that I didn't connect with your exegesis of the Hebrew, those deeper, more intellectual ways that we try and engage with Scripture. So let me unmute you guys, and for somebody who's talking about not talking too much, I'm talking a lot. So I want to get some sense from you guys, any kind of questions, and also I want to show you something. So now, I think now if you want to unmute yourself, you can. Let me share with you guys also something. So I'm on my wife's computer today, and things are super easy for me in terms of technology, but navigating a different computer.
I had to say, this morning, I got announcements I make.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I'll make an announcement for you, Zach. My church, Anchor Church, Zach. Don't forget, Zach. My church, Anchor Church. I invite you come to 2021. They're called Kingdom. It's called the Kingdom Rise Conference on April 26th to 29. Anchor Faith Church, and the fourth night and 3 nights, the powerful messages.
Hey, Chris, you're giving us the scoop on a conference that you're putting on in St. Augustine?
Yeah.
We're on.
Maybe I can get those details from you, and then I can put them out in an email afterwards. Would that be okay?
What does that mean?
Like, so a lot of times it's hard for people to like just get all that information and then move on it. And so if I send out an email to folks, then they would have all that information, and they wouldn't just be and then they would have it. So the announcement is good, but I was wondering if I could communicate it also through email to folks.
I just take a picture right now.
Okay. All right, you send it to me. Perfect. Let me show you guys.
And how many will you know?
So we've been talking a little bit about this kind of ministry here in Tampa. Part of why I'm here at Palma Ceia is because Palma Ceia is sponsoring and sheltering the creation of an ability inclusive worshiping community. And so just as we kind of have been talking about where folks with disabilities are leading alongside everybody else, that's our goal with Bethlehem Inclusive Church. And also, one, props to Chris. The name of the church was Chris's idea. And a lot of our friends with disabilities, Kendra, Matt, Chris, and others, parents and things like that, folks with and without disabilities, collaborated on this logo, which has some sense of growth and diversity there within it. But as we are talking about this stuff at length, some of it I hope is communicated in the construction of the class that is integrated. The idea of a worship space that is also integrated, where folks with disabilities are leading week in and week out in such a way that might be good news, not just to folks with disabilities, but to folks of any ability. That's what we're going to be doing and being about in this church. So we're not meeting yet, but I think that there's something that we can learn from a class like this. There's something that we can learn from having folks share their experiences, but you won't know the gifts and the ways in which
Against the table. We don't have to shh, but
we won't know the gifts that folks with disabilities have unless we're there in relationship with them, and unless those relationships are reciprocal, where they're receiving things but also that they're giving things. We don't do a great job of leading in the way of Jesus when we don't allow people to give their gifts, and um, we are there trying to fix them or off. Oh, I got your text, Chris. I see that. Thank you. So I guess partly in this class, as we're ending things out and we're leaving and just entering into Easter and also the end of this called Lenten class period, I just want to invite you folks to develop relationships with folks with disabilities. Go into spaces where folks with disabilities are leading, where they have the opportunity to change you. We've kind of been joking in this class sometimes about different Zoom etiquette things, and you guys have seen Chris and I going back and forth, muting and unmuting and stuff like that. But yeah, it gets messy, and that is part of the point, that there are ways in which each community, every diverse experience adds something to Christian witness. We are not all that we can be as a church without our friends with disabilities. The gospel is a little bit smaller if we just understand it in the way that we do without our friends with disabilities. When I was teaching in youth group and working in the ministry of Young Life, there's a way in which that kind of youth ministry happens, where you're pushing folks, or the kind of unstated goal is to have a kid be reached in youth ministry. And this was my story, right? I come to faith through the ministry of Young Life, and then I can articulate the gospel in the way that my youth leaders did, and that's a sign of success or successful conversion, and bonus points if that also looks different, and that people's lives start to change and look different. But when I was doing that ministry with folks with disabilities who I knew God was present with and working with, but also couldn't really articulate faith in the way that I was used to as a marker, that challenge for what is going on in salvation, what is God doing, it ended up being something much bigger than I had thought before. The gospel expanded into this much bigger field where God was not just in the words that I would speak or the creeds that I was familiar with or could master, but God was present all over the place. And the gospel became this huge thing that took in everything, and in a way that wasn't a problem anymore for my friends with disabilities who didn't communicate well with words. And so that the church would have a much bigger gospel is something that I think we can only get to with not just folks with disabilities, but all of the various diverse expressions of Christianity and all the different the picture of the coming of the kingdom that kind of brings in all these other peoples from all over the world. We need this diverse whole body, and folks with disabilities, I think, are one piece of that. But I think that there's a way in which God can speak through anybody, but also and gives everybody gifts for mission, but also particularly uses things that the world considers weak. And folks with disabilities are often limited and not well included. And I think that is a shame. And we miss out on so much richness. So I can share the things that I can share, but it's not something that I think I well understood until I just learned it through my friends. So I'm encouraging you all. I probably by being in this class, you are now, and I hope it's okay. You can send me a message saying, "Don't send me any more messages. Don't send me any more emails." But I will probably use this class with some other lists as we're developing an email list for this new community. And so I hope that this class might be one way to move into this, but I hope that you guys will develop relationships and build friendships across the lines of disability, and that those can become deep friendships. And I hope that through those friendships, you learn more about Jesus, so to be better about his mission, and just that the mission of the church I think is just seen better in authentic relationships and in authentic communities. And so if I could just open up the class and I'll have Kendra close us out in prayer in a minute, if that would be okay, Kendra. Just give me the thumbs up. Okay. But to just offer anybody anything that they drew from this class, or anything that we didn't talk about in the class that they wish we might speak to.
This one?
Matt's showing us Jesus, or the cross there. Thank you.
This?
I
right.
really enjoyed meeting all of you, and thank you for your time. I've learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. Yeah, go ahead, Lee.
I'm not muted.
You just unmuted me, Zach.
Oh man. Okay, sorry. There we go.
I think Lee figured it out. Yeah.
I have a question. I was driving to Tampa from Savannah last week, so I wasn't able to see. And I wonder if there's a way for me to see that, for you to send it or attach it or send a link.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm busy.
Part of my technical difficulties were unfortunately not recording two of our classes, but the last one I did record as well as this one, and so I can definitely send that one out, and I think I can probably send out just a follow-up email where we have attached all the videos and or at least links to them, and also some of the books and things that I've referenced over the course, and just as a way to kind of dive into some of that reading, if reading is one of the ways to get to this stuff. I got
Again, see, he heard everything you're saying.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's participated in the class.
No problem.
and Edward says, thank all of your friends for sharing their faith, joy, and love. We appreciate their kindness. Yeah, thanks for that, Edward.
Too much static.
Yeah, opening up, unmuting everybody opens up the channel for static and Chris's Roomba to go on in the background or whatever it is.
I just
Yeah,
want to say that I really enjoyed the class, and you know, being the parent of a disabled child, you know, sometimes you wonder when you go to a church if they're going to be accepted, and you know Andrew very well. Andrew just kind of makes his own way and has all his life, which is great for us because some of our friends can't do that and they don't fit in and that type of thing. But Andrew always made his way to fit in, and you know that was good for us because we always wondered if he was going to be comfortable. Are we going to be able to go to church? Are we going to be able to worship? Are we going to be able to do anything with him and for him to get something out of services? And those that know him know he's a pretty quiet guy when he wants to be, and he can be very animated when he wants to be. But it always amazed me how he was go to a Sunday school class and sit and not say a word, but and we're in the car, he will give you the verse, he'll give you the passage, I mean, it's amazing. He was taking it all in better than I do. I mean, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't take every word the pastor says and remember it. And he literally would keep it in his heart. But I do want to give a little testimony. We talked with someone who hasn't seen Andrew in what, 20 some years? Yeah, at least 20 some years. And I don't know, we reconnected with his daughter on Facebook because it's just a strange story. Facebook does have some good things. And one of them is you do connect with people that you may not have seen in the future. But anyway, when Andrew was a small child, Ronnie was very much in his life and used to go to our church with us. And due to circumstances in his life, he got away from church and he left. And I'm not going to the whole story, but his daughter reconnected with me, which is the funniest thing. And she says, he constantly talks about Andrew. And I said, really? She says, Andrew's always made an impression on Dad. It's just amazing. So he's been very ill, had some health issues. Well, lo and behold, we got a hold of him this weekend. And the first person he wanted to talk to was our son. And I was just blown away because he said Andrew has always meant so much to him. And I you know, it's just amazing what God does through our special needs people. It's just amazing because I've seen it with other kids and that who've grown up in the ministry with. But it's actually going to come by Monday because he has an appointment in St. Pete just so he can see Andrew. He hasn't seen Andrew in over 20 years. So we're really excited about it. Praise the Lord. So, you know, and Andrew, he said, meant a lot to him in his Christian life. He said he got away from the Lord, but he always would remember how Andrew loved the Lord and just things like, Andrew never says anything. You know, it's just more or less the way he lives. So tell me that these special ones can't touch you. As I have too many examples. It's just amazing what God can do through any of us, but particularly these guys because their hearts are so tender and they don't have all the outside world interfering with what they believe in and what they want and what they listen to. And when you take them to church, they probably pick up more than you and I would, who have minds of understanding or whatever a society says we have. But I believe God made them with a special heart. I really do.
Well, thanks for that. And yeah, thanks for sharing, Andrew. There have been times in my ministry where I thought And you know, sometimes ministry in any context can look like having a lot of stuff to do. And there were times in my ministry where I thought that my ministry consisted of doing things for all the folks with disabilities that were a part of my ministry. But yeah, over time, I realized more and more that they have been doing things for me. That my life is much richer, and that the church and my theological growth and development, the ways in which I've known Jesus has been much more much richer because of my friends with disabilities. It's something that I want for everybody because of just the way that God has worked through them. So anybody else any last word before Kendra closes us in prayer? All right, Kendra, would you close us in prayer this Palm Sunday?
You ready? God, thank you for Zach's Zoom. He did a great job, Lord. Have a great Sunday and Palm Sunday today, Lord. Lord, thank you and pray for America. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, thanks, friends.
See you guys.
Okay,
Very nice to know
bye.
all of you.
It was nice to know y'all.
Nice to meet you. Many blessings.
Thank you. You too.
You too.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
You too. Thank you.
Amen.
Oh my God.
Take care, folks.